Thank you, Mr. Chairman, the ranking member, and thank all of you. And Dr. Collins, it's great to see you again. My first question is on opioids and what you're doing, and we've talked numerous times about this. Obviously, I live in an area that's highly affected here. Two questions. You mentioned and you said in your that we had put a $500 million historic investment into this, but you've mentioned in your response to questions that you have private partners. Could you elaborate on how the private partnership works and what kind of commitment dollar-wise that private partnership is committing to add to the $500 million that we're doing in the research?
Happy to. We have worked intensively since your wonderful decision to make $500 million available in FY18 and to have that in the base so that it will be there in 19 and beyond. Working with all of the institutes across NIH, we have put forward an opportunity for new and bold ideas to come forward. And we are in a place now, I think, of having a remarkable portfolio that we're ready to launch. You also graciously gave us that first year of support as 2-year money so that we could, in fact, carry over some of the FY18 funds into 19, since it's late enough in the year that starting brand new things is a little challenging. But we have figured out how we're going to spend a significant fraction of that 500 right away. It does include a wide variety of applications, including some of the things that have already been discussed by Dr. Volkow and Dr. Koroshetz, but also such things as what to do about the neonatal abstinence syndrome, which is of such deep concern to all of us in terms of how best to manage what happens to those babies and what is their long-term future. The public-private partnership, which you mentioned, is actually a modest part of this broad portfolio, but an important one. Again, as we talked about earlier, the decision was made by me, but based on strong recommendations, that partnership should involve assets that are contributed by industry that have value, data, compounds, scientific expertise, but not a cash contribution. Mm-hmm. It is a little challenging right now to attach a dollar value to what their in-kind contributions are going to add up to, but it will be substantial.
Good.
So putting that all together, we think we're in a good place to move both the public-private partnership and the rest of this broad portfolio together quite rapidly.
Good, thank you. Dr. Volkow, on the neonatal abstinence syndrome, we have, obviously, we're the state most highly affected by that as well. And this is an area of deep concern to everybody. You see a lot of we've got 1,000 more kids in foster care. A lot of these babies probably will be. They're repeat mothers. They have repeat exposure. I mean, they have numerous exposure to numerous drugs, not just particularly one. And I believe you visited our Lily's Place down in Huntington to see what kind of care they're getting there. The research that you're doing and the Act Now trials, are those being conducted across the nation, or how do you find the right place to conduct those kinds of, and where are you doing that?
Well, the Act Now is one of the programs that will be funded through the new money that has come for the opioid crisis and will allow us to actually maximize protocols that will enable us, for example, to determine what are the optimal interventions for the best outcomes on neonates. And that includes protocols that may not require the administration of medications to those neonates with abstinence. We have other research that is also ongoing, and I was at West Virginia last week, and I was in Huntington, and I was horrified to hear that 1 out of 5 newborns had opioids on them. And one of the points that is highlighted is that we need to address the needs of the neonate, but we need to address also the needs of the mother once the baby is born, so that the outcome from that infant and child is not addressed. So we're working with research of new medications and new non-medication interventions to improve the outcomes of those neonates. And the other aspect that Francis mentioned is we're very interested in understanding how the brain of these newborns is going to have been influenced by getting exposed to opioids as well as other drugs during fetal development when the brain is very, very vulnerable.
Right, and I don't think I'm anxious to hear how we progress with that. I guess the point in asking, one of the points in asking my question is there's a wealth of data all around the country with people who are hands-on in these scenarios dealing with this right now that I think can feed not only good information, but can help you conduct trials on the local level. It sounds like that's what you're already
Correct.
moving forward on. I am really pleased to be on the STAR Act, the Childhood Cancer Act. I'm glad to hear about the survivorship. That's something of great importance to me. A lot of this I'm very interested in, as Dr. Collins knows, but I do want to go over to Dr. Hodes, because Alzheimer's on the other end of the spectrum is something that I've personally been touched with. And I'd like to know, Doctor, one of the things I have heard is that it's hard to recruit patients for clinical trials for Alzheimer's. Is that the case? What are you finding there? I mean, I know it's hard because by the time you start exhibiting the symptoms, you're already in it. How are you developing all those trials with different?
Senator, it's an excellent question, and it is a challenge to us for multiple reasons. As you've commented upon, for individuals who are already affected with symptoms, we carry out studies that are extremely important, but there's also a sense that in order to be most effective in
Finding a
preventing the appearance of symptoms, that we need to intervene earlier before irreparable damage is done.
Right.
This means that we need to recruit people who are not coming through a normal process where they see a clinician who suggests they participate in a clinical trial. These are people who are at high risk but show no symptoms. So we need to develop and are developing strategies for screening those at high risk, and then the charge of finding people who are committed, dedicated to participate in studies to see if we can make a difference through early intervention. Studies such as All of Us present a unique opportunity for this. With 1 million people, for example, who have signed on for their interest in participating in research, we can screen those who, by a variety of metrics, may be at high risk for developing symptoms years or decades later, and take an opportunity to intervene with those now. So we're in the midst of a nationwide program which will be announced this summer to look at multiple modalities for recruiting patients into studies.
Good. Thank you. We want to support that. Thank you.